Welcome everyone to Marylhurst University's webinar, where we'll review the Food Systems and Society Graduate Degree Program. Hi everybody. During today's presentation, we'll hear from Marylhurst Food Systems and Society Assistant Professor Sean Gillen. Program Coordinator for the department, Emily Burrell, is also joining us. And Victoria Reese, Admissions Counselor, is on the line. My name is Liz Lehman, and I am a Marylhurst staff representative, and I'll be moderating this presentation today. As we begin our conversation, we'll take a quick dive into with a program overview before reviewing the financial considerations and resources available to you as a student. We'll then look at our application requirements and the application process here at Marylhurst. We also want to make sure that we address the individual questions that you have about the program, so we're going to reserve the second half of our presentation today to hear those from you. Save your questions till the end and go ahead and use the questions box associated with the GoToWebinar. We'll field those questions and address them at the end. We're also recording this webinar, so no need to frantically write down all of the content you see on the screen today. We'll be glad to email you out a copy in the coming days following this presentation. So I think that takes care of all of the housekeeping we needed to discuss. So without further ado, let's take a look at the program. And Sean, would you briefly describe the learning agenda of the Food Systems and Society program and tell us what it means to participate in a low residency program?
Yes, thank you, Liz, and welcome to everybody that's joined us. Our program is unique as a master's degree program in Food Systems and Society for its focus on social justice and social change in the food system. Students will learn about food systems policy, food systems politics, culture, advocacy in foundation courses throughout their first year. These courses emphasize the development of critical thinking, reading, and writing skills. They focus on the lenses of class, gender, and race and ethnicity in the food system. And an overall point of this program is to integrate scholarship and practice around food systems. So we recognize that academics have done a lot of thinking on food systems and social change, and we also recognize that advocates and activists around the country and around the world are also working. And one key aim of this program is to get these sometimes overlapping, sometimes disconnected groups thinking and talking together. So as Liz said, the program is low residency and cohort-based. That means that the program combines online courses with on-campus intensives each fall and spring term. So in the fall, all students, both first and second years, will come to campus for a 3 to 5 day intensive session, and then come back in the spring for that intensive session. We found that this provides a really solid learning community for our students so that they get to know each other when they're on campus, and then they go out into the world to their own places of residence where they continue their own lives and work, and then also engage with each other online. This, for us, has been a really effective pedagogical approach because we are able to draw students from all over the country with really different experiences and knowledge around food systems, and then provide them an opportunity to learn and then share that knowledge with other students in the program. I'll stop there and be happy to follow up.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the intensives and whether or not they're required and how long each of those intensives are, how long students are expected to be on campus?
Yeah, typically the intensives are required. It's a required part of the program, and there would be a total of 4 intensives that students are required to attend. They're 4 days long, and they take place at Marylhurst University's campus in Portland, Oregon.
Thank you. Now at Marylhurst, we operate on a quarter system. The program length is 48 credits, and it's a 2-year program. The program also balances academic rigor and excellence with respect for the community commitments and work commitments you already maintain. Sean, do you want to share advice that you may have with students who are balancing graduate school and other commitments?
Yeah, and this is excellent. I'll also take this chance to talk a little bit about how some of our students have integrated the degree program and their learning in it with the work that they're already doing or work that they develop as they continue in the program. So first, the coursework is typically 8 credit hours, which is 2 courses per quarter. Our quarters last 11 weeks, and there'll be 3 in a typical academic year. You wouldn't take courses in the summer. With 8 credits of coursework, you can expect to spend 20 to 25 hours per week, and that has shown to be true for our students. Some require the investment of a little bit additional time, but we really try and keep that expectation in our program. Another way to integrate the work that you do in the program with your own work in the food system is through the thesis process. So in addition to the foundation courses I described earlier that cover the basics of food systems, policy, advocacy, culture, and social change, students are asked in the second year of the program to develop a thesis. And I encourage students to think about their thesis as an opportunity to develop knowledge and skills that are particularly relevant to them and their life's work and their engagement with the food system. Our students have found this process really helpful for tailoring their learning in the program to their specific professional and personal goals. One unique component of our thesis process is that we ask students to complete it in the winter quarter of their second year, which means that they complete their thesis 1 quarter before graduation. In their last quarter, they take a course called Engagement for Social Change, where students are asked to apply what they've learned through the program and their thesis to develop new ideas and actions for future food system engagement.
Great, thank you. So with the majority of the degree being taught online, can you describe the work of our most successful online students and the actions that they take really to excel in this format?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of learning that happens around how to be an online student. We've put considerable work into making the online learning platform really intuitive and supportive of students. As an online student, you would have access to the resources of the university that an on-ground student. We've got librarians who are very active in dialogue with students. We work with the Writing Center. Our program coordinator, Emily Burrell, has developed templates in Canvas, which is our learning management system, to make sure that the assignments and learning objectives and online learning experience is really clear. We suggest, to be a successful online student, you're constantly or consistently engaged with the online learning community. We encourage our students to be really forthcoming with questions and make an effort to be very present as instructors. One element, people often think, well, maybe online learning is a little bit easier. We really emphasize the rigor of this program and make sure that these online learning experiences are just as rigorous as in-person ones.
Great. And in addition to considering the modality or the format, the online format of this program, when you're looking for a graduate degree, you might also consider the cost. So I'll turn to Victoria Reese, our admissions counselor here at Marylhurst, to share a little bit about the financial resources available to us.
Sure. So, of course, when you're considering diving into a grad program, the cost will be a big question. So, to conceptualize the commitment, the financial commitment of this program, we can start by saying it's $628 a credit. At a 48 credit total program, it's about $30,000 total tuition. Of course, you don't have to pay that out of pocket. There are lots of resources available to help you as you dive into this commitment. Federal loans are oftentimes the major source of support that students draw from, both in this program and most grad programs around the country. So if you have access to those, I would suggest that you at least see what's available to you in terms of federal loans, and we can totally discuss different ways to make that investment pay off for you. There are also some limited Marylhurst scholarships that are available to food systems and society students. The amounts vary from $1,000 to $4,000 annually, so those can take a chunk out of the cost per year. And our financial aid office is very available to help you find and get outside scholarships. Also in the admissions office, we are constantly working with students who are juggling different life commitments and trying to make this work, and so we're happy to point you towards resources for outside scholarships as well. And then if you need to, you're always welcome to arrange a tuition payment plan and pay off your cost incrementally. And of course, you pay as you go. So each quarter you'd get a bill, and then you either would draw from your financial aid or however else you want to pay for it. And yeah.
And Emily, do you have anything else you'd like to add as the program coordinator? I know you work directly with a number of incoming students, and cost is a big part of the conversation that you have with them.
Yes, another consideration about the cost of the program is travel to the intensive. If you're a local student, not a big problem for you. If you're coming from the region or out of state, you'll be responsible for your travel, transportation, and lodging while you're here. The great thing about our program is with students, and quite a few students in the local area, and quite a few coming from out of town, we really emphasize that kind of sharing of resources. So we have a lot of students who might rent an Airbnb or host students for the weekend while they're here. They share a lot of transportation to campus. We find that that really also contributes to the to building community and that feeling of a shared cohort. And then one of the things that we also strive for in the program, as an online program, is the cost of textbooks and materials is fairly low outside of a working computer with a webcam, and then your preference on whether you prefer to read online or physical books. But in general, that cost is fairly low.
Thank you. Now let's turn our attention to consider the application requirements of the food systems program. Victoria, Emily, you both might want to address this, but before reviewing an application, what requirements do you expect to receive from a prospective student?
Okay, so the application requirements are pretty standard. We have a Marylhurst University application with a non-refundable $50 application fee, which is going to be waived for all of you who are attending this session, so you can just delete that from the list of requirements and spend that money on something else that you need to. But so the university application, almost everybody does that online. We also have an archaic paper application. If you want to come in and fill that out in our office, that's fine. But most people access that through our application portal. Along with that, we need official sealed transcripts from all the colleges and universities that you attended, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. Those should be sent directly to us from the schools that you attended, and electronic copies are, or electronic official transcripts are fine. We like to see a minimum 3.0 GPA at the undergraduate level and a conferred bachelor's degree. Of course, if you're in your senior year of undergraduate school, please don't hesitate to start your application while you're still finishing that up. We just need to see it before you start the program. Along with that, we'd like to see a resume, and maybe Emily can talk a little bit more about what we'd like to see on the resume. In addition to that will be a statement of intent, which really just lays out your motivation to apply to the program, why you've chosen it, and please be thoughtful in writing it because it is kind of your introduction to the people who will be welcoming you to join us. In addition to the statement of intent, a writing sample or essay, maybe something that you wrote as an undergraduate thesis, a chapter from that, something 5 to 10 pages, not super long, but that demonstrates your academic writing skills. Along with that, there's 2 recommendations. These won't be recommendation letters, but they'll actually be, you'll submit the email addresses of 2 people that you'd like to recommend you, and then they'll be sent a email to prompt to for them to complete. So that's a little bit different than some other programs. And then once we receive all those recommendations or all of those requirement pieces, we'll in the admissions office will compile your application file and share it with the department. They'll be the ones that look it over and invite you for an interview with faculty. And I also like to mention that there are additional requirements for international students who are applying. I am the International Student Support Services person here on campus, in addition to my work with domestic students. So if you are applying from abroad, there have been some awesome recent graduates from abroad, so we love international students in this program and support them very well. But there are additional international application requirements, so we can discuss those in more detail if that's your situation. Yeah.
A common question we also hear from applicants is whether or not prior experience in food systems is necessary. Sean or Emily, do you want to speak to that for our viewers today?
Yeah, a lot of our students come from a variety of academic disciplines and work experience. For an undergraduate degree, we accept a variety of academic disciplines that might be in, but also recognize that people will have different levels of engagement and may be participating in this program to increase that over time. John?
One thing that I've found very interesting about the program and is the wide appeal that it has to students. So our students come from, as Emily was saying, really different backgrounds. In last year's cohort, we had several registered dietitians who are thinking about how to connect the work that they're doing around nutrition to food systems policy and politics, trying to consider how they could be more effective in their practice. So we have people with that kind of a background. We also have people who maybe have managerial experience in food systems. We've had a director of a food bank, for example, as a member of one of our cohorts. Other people may be working for nonprofit organizations and so have a ton of practical experience that way. As Emily said, we emphasize social science skills, but really strive to make the program as interdisciplinary and problem-oriented as possible, such that any background really provides a good foundation for engagement in the program. And we like enrolling students with a diverse disciplinary and work experience because, as I said before, our students really learn from each other and the way that students are differently situated in the food system, both in terms of the kind of work they're doing and where they are geographically, and the disciplines with which they're engaged really adds a lot to the learning experience. So we welcome anyone.
And Victoria, if any of our listeners today wanted to begin an online application, would they need to submit that all in one sitting, or what can they expect when they begin that online application?
No, you definitely don't have to submit it all in one sitting. The online application portal is, you can access that at marylhurst.edu/apply, as you see there. The first step is creating a login, and then you'll get an email confirmation that can prompt you to the next steps. At this point, an admissions counselor will reach out to introduce themselves, and our admissions office here is really personal and personable, so please don't hesitate to draw on us as a resource as you move forward with the admissions process. We're here to help you navigate it and love to get to know you as you move forward with your journey. So yeah, so if you have any questions at any point throughout the admissions process, please don't hesitate to reach out by phone or email, whatever works for you. And then as you move forward with the online application portal, you'll complete your profile. It's mostly demographic information that you will enter in, so that's pretty straightforward. Then there'll be sections where you can upload the documents and enter like recommender information as mentioned on the previous slide. And then as you click through the application, you'll come to a place where you can submit it. And as it says on the screen, you can do that at any time. You can submit your application once you've completed your profile and then come back to upload your requirements. So we try and be flexible with that.
Great. And from there, we mentioned an interview earlier in our discussion. Can those interviews happen online? Are they only conducted in person? What should our applicants expect at this point?
We review every application individually, and we invite people to an interview fairly soon after we receive it. These will take place via Zoom, which is a video conferencing service that we use widely throughout the program, regardless of whether you're local or out of state. This will be usually with a program coordinator, myself, and with a faculty person, depending on availability at that point. So we use that as an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and identify fit for the program and answer any further questions that you might have at that time.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and pretty soon after the interview, usually students are invited to join us. Right?
Yes, we try to move through the process thoroughly but quickly, and try to keep that moving fairly well throughout the spring.
Right. Well, I know many of our listeners joined us today because they had questions already in mind about the program, whether that be related to the curriculum or the modality of the program. So I want to give them the chance to ask those now, and we'll do our best to address them. So if everyone would like to utilize the questions section of this webinar, please go ahead and ask your questions now, and we'll do our best to address them. If you do have specific questions relevant to perhaps your unique situation or your personal experience, feel free to enter those. Just know we may not respond to them in this presentation. We do want to focus our answers towards questions that are going to apply to the entire group. But what will happen is that you'll be followed up with by either a member of the faculty or our admissions team here at Marylhurst. So it looks like we have questions coming in now. If submitting early, will interviews still only take place after the application due date?
No. So if you submit your application early, we usually start that review in about February. So we'll get in touch with you once we receive your application and inform you of the rest of the process. But we try, again, to move through that fairly quickly. So we do have a timeline that we work to, but if we receive your application, you won't be penalized for turning it in early.
And it sounds like we have another listener who would like us to speak a little more about the faculty and the experience and orientation that they bring to the table.
Yeah, so we have, I'm a faculty member. Again, my name is Sean Gill, and my background is in agricultural and food policy and politics. So this is interdisciplinary orientation to connected social and environmental problems. My research often focuses on justice in both social and environmental terms. and it's domestically oriented for the most part. So I've looked at organic regulation and food production in the United States. I've looked at livestock. I've looked at natural resources and their intersections with food and agriculture, with the production of biofuels, with farm bill policy and politics. So a whole range of issues related to domestic agricultural policy and food policy. Patricia Allen is another faculty member in our department. She is internationally regarded for her scholarship on social justice in the food system. A lot of her work has focused on food security and hunger and thinking through how food movements can contribute to a more equitable food system. We draw on practitioner faculty as well. We've got a woman who teaches a class on public advocacy in the food system and social change. And we have a variety of sort of adjunct faculty who serve as guest teachers in a way for our one elective course. We've taught courses on global food politics, and that was led by Eric Holt Jimenez, who's the director of Food First. So we try and engage activist academics to the extent possible, and always recognizing that our students both want academic knowledge and ways to apply that academic knowledge to their lives and work.
So we have a few more questions. Actually, we're getting a lot of great questions. When during the program do the intensives occur?
Those occur in the fall and the spring. So you would start in, it's usually late September, early October. You would have your first intensive, and then the second one would be in May. That would be your first year, and then you would come back for your second year, have one again in late September, early October, and then return again in May, where you would be doing a presentation on your thesis research and then also participating in a graduation ceremony.
Thanks, John. Does the essay have to be one that's been previously written, or can it be specific to the application process?
So that's a great question. You can do either one. We typically see writing samples between 5 and 10 pages. So it may be a chapter of an undergraduate thesis. It may be a blog post or something that you've written specifically for this application. It can be about food systems and social change, but again, you'll be addressing that in your statement of intent. We're primarily looking for evidence of kind of writing ability and comfort with that. You can always check with admissions or myself if you would like further clarification on if something is appropriate.
Great, thank you. And we have another listener that is interested to hear about the types of careers our graduates go on to pursue. And they'd also like to hear about the career placement support provided by Marylhurst.
So we work in, to take the second part first, we work in close collaboration with the Career Services and the Professional Development Center at Marylhurst University, and in that area and all others, we want to make sure that our online food systems students have as good access to these university services as any other student. And so we often at the intensives will invite these members of our university community to come and work with students on these kinds of questions. The careers are sort of all over the board. As I said, our students come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are already working in the food system. And the degree is a way for them to advance in the career that they're already in. Other students are finding new careers. So, and we really have students engaged in the private, nonprofit, and public sector. So to give you a few examples, we have a woman who joined us in our first cohort, I believe. She works in Southern California. She's now administering a USDA grant working to increase healthy food access to low-income communities in the San Diego area. We have a woman in this last cohort who wrote her thesis on municipal food policy, then became a member of the Sacramento Food Policy Council, actually I think the vice chair, and then got an internship with the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, which is really fantastic. I mentioned dietitians coming to our program. Some of these have switched careers. As they learned about food policy environments, they began to see connections between nutrition, food environments, and race, gender, and class equity in the food system, and we're able to apply what they learned to higher level positions that sort of coordinate the nutritional work that they were doing before. So that's a start, and this is a topic we could talk about for a long time, and I'd be happy to follow up.
Absolutely, thank you. And can you speak a little bit to how much of the program curriculum focuses on food systems on a global level? I know you've mentioned some of our faculty work at the global level. Do you want to expand on the curriculum itself?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly are well aware of the global nature of the food system, and in all of our courses, you'll get content and expertise related to global food systems more broadly. It does turn out that a lot of our students are domestic. We have had students from Costa Rica, Canada, South Africa. So we must develop curriculum that is relevant to all of these different audiences, and it really enriches the learning experience for everybody. So there is an emphasis, I think, on domestic food systems, but we're acutely aware of the necessity to engage global questions. I also offer up the thesis as an opportunity for students to engage the questions that they want in a deeper way. So the food system is a big thing, and there are lots of ways to talk about it. We do our best to provide really relevant, timely curriculum that would be applicable to as many people as possible. But given the diverse nature of our students' experiences, interests, and professional goals, we make sure that the thesis itself provides an opportunity for advanced learning on a topic of particular relevance to our students. So if someone were interested in going a little bit more in depth with global food systems issues, we would encourage them to do that in the thesis, and that would of course be supported by our faculty.
Great. And does the program address permaculture design ideas?
The program doesn't focus on sustainable agriculture to the extent that other programs do. We certainly engage the environmental dimensions of food systems. I mentioned I have a background in this, but we really try and forward the social justice and social change-oriented elements. So that said, we do have students who are writing theses on how to increase the environmental sustainability of food systems, but recognizing the importance of policy and politics in that process. So we don't teach on permaculture per se, but as I said, that would be something you could explore, and it's, as long as you were connecting to social justice and social change in the food system through a thesis.
We talked a little bit already about the career opportunities that are opened up to our graduates. Do you want to expand on that and specify whether or not Marylhurst works with any corporations or companies?
You know, what we're doing right now is developing relationships with external audiences. One of the key features of the program that we're learning as we go is that we're, through this program, creating a tremendous network of scholars and activists, where we do in fact have students who have engaged the private sector. One, for example, looked into the environmental and social justice oriented practices of some major food corporations, and has parlayed that thesis work into engagement with food system companies around marketing and how to improve practices around food system equity. So we don't have any corporate partners per se, but we do have a scholar activist network that allows past graduates, current students, and future students to connect to each other, to share resources, to network, to learn about food systems opportunities, ask each other questions and the like.
Great. And a couple more questions in regards to the application process. Should references be academic in nature, or can they be professional references?
These can be either, depending on your background and history. If you can have references from one or both, or a combination.
Great, thank you. And can transcripts be sent from the applicants, or must they be postmarked directly from the university?
They can be sent by the applicants as long as they're sealed and official. That's fine. Thank you for that question.
And another question in regards to the thesis. Do students have the opportunity to work with a thesis advisor? Who counsels them during that process?
Faculty would counsel you during that process. You work very closely. It is not an atomistic thesis experience. We try and make this as collective and learning community based as possible, which means that you're not on your own trying to sort out how to do a thesis. We guide you through step by step. You have an opportunity to talk to other students about their thesis development process, to learn about the thesis work that they're doing, and then, as the question suggests, work in close consultation with an advisor who takes you step by step through that.
And our last question for the day, what kind of research, can you speak to the research that our faculty are leading currently?
Sure. So I mentioned my expertise and Patricia's. For examples, right now, I think the last thing I had published was on, it's called, well, I don't remember what the title of the journal article is off the top of my head, but it was on the ethical, political, and justice dimensions of using food crops across fuel, feed, and food uses. So what on a global level is at stake when we're converting food to other uses, looking at the food security and environmental implications of that policy course. Patricia, for her part, I think one of the last things she wrote about was social justice in the restaurant industry, inequality in the food system, and then we have a practitioner faculty who I think has published less academic research, but working in Washington, D.C. as a policy advocate. So that's sort of another avenue. And I'd be happy to follow up there if people have specific questions.
Great. Looks like we have a few other questions. They may be specific to our listeners' individual needs, so we will be following up with you directly if you haven't heard us address a question that you've submitted. We did also, before we close, want to provide some helpful resources to our listeners, so you'll find several websites that you can access online here. Victoria and admissions, as well as our faculty and coordination teams, are very eager to speak with you and follow up directly. You will receive a copy of this webinar by email in the coming days, so please feel free to reference that as needed. I also want to call attention to an upcoming live video conference information session that the Food Systems and Society Department will be hosting here at Marylhurst. This is a great opportunity for you to hear directly from students within the program, alumni. Sean and Emily and our admissions team will be participating in that as well. So a great opportunity for some face-to-face interaction. What we would encourage you to do if you're considering this program is to begin your application online. Victoria spoke about our online portal earlier. Go ahead and get started, and then we can be advocates for you and resources here on the back end as you continue to submit all of those different pieces of criteria. And then this December 1st live video conference can also help supplement additional information that you might need to complete that process. So more information will be shared on the Marylhurst website about that December 1st video conference, so watch for that. And we thank you all for joining us and for your time today. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks.